Tanh Truong has gone from being a pharmacist to then buying $30 million in commercial real estate. So if you are thinking about wanting to leave a day job and PharmD at that, then you're going to want to tune into this episode. Welcome to the Cash Flow Happy Hour podcast. I'm your host, Josh Baldovino, and on this show, you can join us live as we interview investors and share how they are increasing their cash flow. So grab a drink and let's get into it. Yo, Tanh, good to see you.
Likewise, brother.
How you doing?
Hanging in there, man. It's been a busy day. Been pretty productive, but can't complain. I'm here. Made it to the end of the day, so
well, you made it to the show. So
exactly. Yeah.
Before we dive into your background and all of that, just the double hook to the show. So you were a PharmD, had a small portfolio of smaller units, and then transitioned everything to commercial real estate. And at this point, it's $30 million under management. Cheers to that, man.
Cheers, brother.
What's in your glass, by the way?
We got coconut rum, toasted coconut rum.
Fancy.
It was a small shooter that I found. I'm usually a whiskey guy, so a little bit of change of pace here.
Fair enough. I have some IPA in a Warriors cup, by the way. Warriors are playing against the Kings after this. So if you are a Warriors fan and you're watching this live, let me know in the comments.
I love IPAs, by the way.
I love it. Well, next time you're back in California, I'll get you one.
Yes, sir.
So real quick, just for context, give us the quick 30-second origin story, and then how did you get into commercial real estate?
Yeah, so I am born and raised in Cincinnati. Grew up on the west side of Cincinnati, went to school in Cincinnati. Growing up, the plan was to actually go to med school, but my thought was med school is expensive and it takes a long time. So what are my alternatives? So that ended up being going into pharmacy school. So I did that for a total of 6 years at the University of Cincinnati, 2 years of undergrad and 4 years of grad school. Graduated, during my classes, I would say I was also learning about finance and investing simultaneously, which naturally transitioned into real estate. And as soon as yeah, go ahead.
You were learning finance. Was this, you weren't taking classes in addition to your pharmacy class? This was just, I'm sure, like YouTube University, right? Or were you actually taking finance classes?
No finance classes at all. I was pretty much stacked at 18 hours full time with pharmacy. So everything above and beyond in the financing and investing realm was self-taught. So, like you said, YouTube University, podcasts, hoarding all types of books that I can in regards to real estate.
Yeah.
So then as soon as I graduated, I pretty much pulled the trigger and bought my first duplex with a partner. And from there, I kind of grew my residential portfolio and eventually transitioned into commercial real estate full time, which was more recently. It was around 2020, probably the Q3, Q4 of 2020 is when I fully transitioned into it. So it's 2023. I'm lying. I'm so stupid. 2021. I'm sorry. End of 2021.
Okay. So then just for a timeline's sake, when did you buy your first rental property? What year was that?
First rental property in the residential side?
Yeah.
That was 2018. So I graduated in 2017.
Okay. And then, so 2018, bought your first one. And then in 2021, you said, the 1 to 4 is not for me. Let me just go all in commercial. Why?
A multitude of factors. First factor was because I had partners on the residential side and we were butting heads, if you will, just kind of in a disagreement on pretty much everything, right? Time put in or what we should do with the properties, how to manage, blah, blah, blah. So that was one of the main factors. The second factor was that commercial real estate always intrigued me. It was something that was so eluding, something that I did not know much about. So I wanted to learn all that I could about it. So from there, I kind of did the same thing I did while I was in pharmacy school, hoarded all the information that I could in regards to commercial real estate, listening to podcasts, YouTube, etc. But to my dismay, everything that I found was very rudimentary. After countless hours of reading and listening, it felt like something was still missing.
Yeah.
So, I started networking with people, found a mentor, and started learning everything from him. And that essentially was the time frame that I took the full leap.
Okay. And so I want to get to that full leap because that you did that pretty quick. From I'm again penciling out that timeline. You graduated pharmacy school in 2017. So my first kind of dumb question for you is, I mean, I had a crap ton of debt when I finished my graduate degree, and I was not in a position to buy a rental property the year after. How did you do that?
Well, I will say that I was in a more fortunate spot than not. It wasn't anything that I did that was extraordinary. It was really the selflessness of my parents.
Hmm.
So before I started college, my first thought was, man, do we have any like do I have any rich uncles or aunts laying around, or do they have just 200 grand just sitting there that I could just borrow at 0% interest or whatever interest that was lower than what the government could give me, right?
Hmm.
So that conversation kind of came up with my parents, and I was just like, man, I really don't want to go into debt. I hear all these terrible stories. People go into debt, take some 20 years to pay it off, 30 years
Hmm.
to pay it off, whatever, right? So through that conversation there, my father kind of took the initiative upon himself to help me get through pharmacy school. So he essentially liquidated his 401k, took the penalty. This was before he was 65,
Yeah.
and with that capital, he was able to pay all of my college degree expenses,
Yeah.
myself and my brother. So I will say I was lucky in that aspect without any student loans,
Hmm.
and our family is pretty frugal. We're a family of four. We grew up in a 300 square foot apartment, so
Yeah.
um, very very frugal. We don't spend unnecessarily. So
Okay.
with that mindset, um, I was able to save up a lot of capital while I was practicing. And during school, we were working as well, so that helped out a lot. So whatever dollar I could
Hmm.
save up essentially went towards real estate.
Got it. So, I mean, thank you to your dad because that's awesome. I mean, my parents helped me out through college too, and paid for half of grad school, but um, just not probably not as smart financial decisions as you. I'll leave it like that. um, and then in terms of okay, so then you bought your first rental property and you bought a couple with some partners. Um, I guess as you were thinking about moving into commercial or changing partnerships, there was a little bit of arguments and maybe bad blood. So what did you learn from those bad partnerships that then you transitioned as you moved into your different partnerships on the commercial side?
I think the main thing with partnerships that you have to know is I'll preface that by saying that the guys that I went into a partnership with, there was two other friends of mine who
Hmm.
were also who went to pharmacy school with me.
Okay.
And so really, really close friends of mine, right? They call me, I'd be there. You need
Yeah.
help with anything, I'm there, right? So the one main thing that I learned there is that you want to separate your business conversations with your personal conversations.
Mm.
Because for me, I'm always willing to help somebody, right? And if they're my close friends, even more so, right? So in those times during those partnerships or during the residential time of mine, we during our conversations, a lot of times I'd be giving up more than I should have just
Got
to keep the relationship as it is, right? Because it's like it's as if one of your best friends comes to you and they'll be asking you for, hey man, can I borrow $100, $200,
it.
$1,000,
Mhm.
whatever, or hey, can I borrow your car? Yeah, man. no, not a problem, right?
Yeah.
So not looking at it as a business relationship was more costly to me
Okay.
because in that sense, I gave up more than I should.
Gotcha.
Whereas if it were just another partner who I didn't have that close relationship with, it would have been a different story.
Okay.
So now I've learned to separate personal conversations with business conversations.
Okay. Fair. And so as you evolved, and you got into commercial real estate. So and we talk about why commercial real estate, but what asset class specifically?
Right now, I'm focused primarily on retail, so strip
Okay.
malls and where or industrial, so warehouses and flex spaces.
And why did you pick that asset class?
Industrial, I love because as you progress into the future, looking at how Amazon is pretty much taking over everything, internet
Hmm.
businesses are pretty much running rampant. Industrial properties will always have a footing in the future because those large companies will always need storage in some capacity.
Okay.
So it's call it internet resistant, if you will.
Okay.
Um, and people always need space for something, right? Manufacturing, uh, distribution, things like that, I think are going to be very prominent in the future. They will have a
Yeah.
future, if you will. Now, looking at retail, it's kind of on the same thinking pattern. A lot of times you'll see tenants that are service based, things that you can't really buy online, right? You can't buy
Okay.
a haircut online. You can't buy getting your nails done online. You can't
Hmm.
buy cooked food. Well, you can. You can get it delivered, but you know,
Doesn't taste the
the
same.
right the whole atmosphere is kind of different, right?
Yeah.
So that's why those two primarily intrigue me,
Okay.
and retail in and of itself was always kind of like when you think commercial, the first thing that comes to your mind is retail, right? So that
Hmm.
I was naturally drawn to retail just you know based on that's what I thought commercial was, not knowing
Yeah.
that industrial was at the time, nor offices. But then again,
Gotcha.
I think those two asset classes have a strong foothold going into the in the future.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that you didn't just say, okay, I'm selling off my single family homes and now I'm going to buy the strip mall down the side of the road. Like, what did that first commercial deal look like for you?
First commercial deal was a 100,000 square foot strip mall. It was 17% vacant, so 83% occupied. Anchored by a Dollar Tree. Anchored by actually, yeah, it was just a Dollar Tree. The other ones are kind of smaller local tenants. The Dollar Tree occupied about 11,000 square feet. The vacancies were 10,000 square feet and 6,000 square feet. You had a local mom and pop furniture store. You had a nationwide insurance. You have a nail shop, restaurant, and well, two restaurants. I'm sorry, a bar, um, and a little supply store for beauty, Cosmoprof. So purchase price was
Yeah.
asking was around 5.3. We got it for 5 flat.
Okay.
Ended up being, I think it was around a 9 or a 9 cap was the price. Um,
Wait, can I pause it here, Ton?
yeah,
So you go into the first big deal, right? And most people aren't selling a single family home in Cincinnati to then say, I'm going to do a $5 million. I'm going to buy that Dollar Tree mall right there. Like there had to be a catalyst, right? What was that catalyst?
I think the catalyst was more so the environment that you're around. So the network that you
Okay.
have. If you have the network and to take down something bigger,
Yeah.
it's a possibility. Um, you just have to know how to structure the deal and get it done, right?
Okay.
Aside from that, I think and I'll kind of hit this point, and I'm hoping I'm answering your question correctly. The catalyst, being so like the knowledge piece
Yeah.
is more so from interacting with my mentor so much, learning to see things the way he does when we're looking at commercial properties. So I essentially learned how to use his eyes to see the different type of nuances that go along with different asset types. So
Gotcha.
with that, and don't get me wrong, I rely very heavily on my mentor for my first commercial property, right? I
Hmm.
knew the basics of underwriting. I knew very little in terms of what I'm looking for, but a lot of things kind of just check the boxes. So from there, we, you know, saw that it was a good deal. We saw potential in it. We saw the value add, and essentially just went through the steps of acquiring the properties or the property. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, does that answer the catalyst question?
It does. It does. I mean, so you
Yeah,
found a mentor, which is good. Can I ask how you found that real fast?
the mentor.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is a good story. So, um, I actually met him originally at a poker game. So we have a real estate network meeting up in Cincinnati, right? We just
Okay.
get together, play poker, talk real estate, drink
Yep.
beers. What how much better could it get, right?
Yeah.
So I met him, and this is one of those nights where we're literally up until 3, 4 o'clock in the morning playing poker.
Okay.
And we started at noon, right? So he comes in, we're playing, and the conversation was just so riveting that that's why it took till 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And the problem with that was I had work at 8 a.m. and I was an hour away from home. Right.
Oh
I need
man.
I needed to go back home to get my white coat, my just get dressed and then actually get to work too. Nonetheless, completely worth it. Because the small conversation that we had there, we kind of hit it off. Like we
Hmm.
almost became best friends, right? Not entirely, but we found out that we were very similar to each other in terms
Yeah.
of how we grew up, what we're looking for, etc. And then, a week later, a couple of days later, etc., I heard him on a podcast that a buddy of mine runs. And at the end of the podcast, he actually sent out a challenge or a homework assignment for all the listeners. He goes, you know, if you are able to find 5 commercial properties, give me a rundown of all the pros and cons, send it over to me. We'll discuss them. So I heard that and I was like, man, I got to do this. So I did. I ended up spending a little bit more time, did 10, sent it over to him. And that's kind of where our conversation started, right? However, he was always very, very limited with his time, as
Hmm.
business people are, right? So he wasn't readily available. So everything that we've discussed through that initial interaction with looking at properties and whatnot, it was a little bit more than rudimentary, but I knew I was still missing something. I knew
Yeah.
that when I'm looking at a property, I don't know why it's a good deal, why it's a bad deal. Something else is just clearly missing up here, right?
Yeah.
So for the next probably 2 months, maybe even close to 3 months, I just started hounding him on social media. Like, hey man, love to get together. I just need an hour of your time. Let's hang out, right? I Facebook stalked this guy, right? Got on his Facebook, looked at what he likes to do, where he likes to eat, everything, right? Found out his kids' names, their birthdays, his wife's name, his wife's birthday, right? Just seeing if I can, kind of piece something together. And
Yeah.
so, I'm continually reaching out, hey man, let's go get dinner. Love to take your wife out, you and your wife, your kids, I don't care. Name the restaurant, steakhouse, whatever. I just need an hour of your time.
Hmm.
Continuously. No, 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 right? So eventually I think one of these times it was either a weekend or just some day where he wasn't like busy. So I was like, I reached out and somehow he answered. It might have been a weekend, and he goes, "Yeah, man, you can come out. I'm actually at my lake house right now." I'm like, "Done. Send me the address. I'll be there in however long it takes me to get there. An hour of your time. I'm out." Sends me his address. It's an hour, 30 minutes east of where I am. I'm like, damn. All right. Grabbed all my shit, got dressed, blah, blah, blah. Literally, that's all. That's it. Ran out the
Yeah.
door, texted him back. I'll be there in an hour 30 ETA this time. Bam. Got there. We started hanging out, and that hour turned into 8.
Okay.
And I think the most value out of this story was the persistence, the resilience, right, in the finding a mentor. But to piggyback off that hour really turned into 8 because I was not there to ask him to teach me anything about commercial. I wasn't there to say, hey man, how would you look at this? How would you do this? Like, could you help me do this? Could you help me do that? Could you give me this? Could you give me that? I
Mm-hmm.
never really said I in any sense. The majority of the conversation was me asking him what is the bottleneck in his business? What are his challenges now and how I can help? So essentially, I was asking him what value I could bring to him, what troubles I could fix, what problems I could solve. And that gained a lot of respect for he gained a lot of respect for me from just that conversation there, and which is
Okay.
why it lasted as long as it did. And from there, we became great friends. We became partners in a lot of deals together, and pretty much one of my best friends today.
I love it. There's a lot of people who will try and find a mentor or try and pick your brains, which never really works. But I think if anyone who's listening to this right now and you're looking for a mentor, or you even just want like a foot at the table or a seat at the table, yeah, make it only about the other person for the first few conversations. And the how to find value is the hardest part, especially if you're trying to figure out and you're like new to the real estate game. But I mean, in your case, if it's taking a quick look at 20 deals before you even meet with them, like here are 20 pre-vetted deals, this one's my favorite, and you just do that nonstop. Like if someone did that for me in Branson, Missouri right now and wanted to do an Airbnb, I'll put that out there because there may be someone else listening, I will help you do that deal. And we could partner on it. But I think that's awesome. So then you got on to, so you did that meeting. You then bought a $5 million strip mall. And that, I guess, how many of those tenants are triple net? And I guess, could you also break down what triple net means real fast?
Yeah, so I'll do that first. So in residential, you essentially get gross leases, right?
Mm-hmm.
All you do is pay the base rent and you get this box to live in. You pay
Yep.
your utilities, etc. The landlord pays taxes on the property, they pay insurances on the property, they pay all this maintenance that comes with the property, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in net leases, there's single net, double net, and triple net. Single net, you're essentially responsible for your proportionate share of taxes. And double net is when you're responsible for your proportionate share of taxes and insurance. Triple net would be taxes, insurance, and CAM. CAM stands for Common Area Maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine an apartment where there's a foyer lobby with like pool tables and a study, whatever. So looking at it from a multifamily perspective, let's say your base rent was $1,000. So now if it's a triple net lease, you're liable. Let's say your apartment space was 1% of the entire building. You'd be liable or responsible for 1% of the taxes, 1% of the insurance, as well as 1% of the CAM fees or
Mm-hmm.
or costs that is associated with maintaining that common area that you are using.
Yeah.
It's beautiful because you get to offset a lot of the expenses from that property to the tenants. And Josh, what was your second question? Or could have been first question?
Well, I mean, so triple net leases, and I guess on that first deal, so for those who are just joining us right now, his first commercial deal that he did was 1,000 square foot or 100,000 square foot strip mall, and the major tenant there was a Dollar Tree, right? Which I'm assuming is a triple net.
Yep.
Lease, yes. And I mean, just like on a high level, like you're speaking to a 5-year-old, why do you like the Dollar Tree as a tenant?
You like Dollar Tree as a tenant because they're a national tenant, they're a credit tenant. Their risk of defaulting is lower.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like if I were to ask you, Josh, there's two tenants. One of them is McDonald's, and the other one is Joe's Burgers. Who would you rather have? Most likely, you would rather have McDonald's because their their risk of going bankrupt is a lot less than Joe's Burgers, right?
Yep.
So having them there means that you're guaranteed income as coming from rent.
Solid.
Your risk of them defaulting is lower, or yeah, your risk of getting struck by lightning is higher than if they were to default, essentially.
Yeah, totally. I mean, obviously, you have these well-established brands that have hundreds of millions, hopefully, in the bank or something like that. But obviously, the credit lines also help them through whatever as well, and trusted business history. And so, is that why you're only focusing? Like, would you consider multifamily, or are you just industrial retail all the way?
So I don't think my quick answer is no. I would like to say I'm not interested at all in multifamily
Okay.
because the tenant profile there is so drastically different from your commercial tenants, right? Commercial tenants are business folk. You're talking to them, they hold themselves in high regard, right?
Mhm.
They actually treat the spaces very nice. They leave it very nice, right? When they leave. Whereas, as you know, with residential tenants, it gets a little bit dicier. It gets a little bit uglier, a lot more turnover, etc. But and the reason why I don't fully say no is because I feel like if there's a very, very good deal out there with kind of the mayhem that we're seeing in multifamily now, if you, let's say hypothetically, 6 months, a year down the road, you could actually pick up a multifamily for 20 cents on the dollar, 30 cents on the dollar, 50 cents on the dollar, some type of discount, right? Actually, I don't think I would look at it if it's unless it's 50% off, right? So
Yeah.
if that's the case, why not? Because you're kind of just leaving money on the table. And historically, multifamily it has been very great on a as a recession proof asset, right? So those are some of the factors that would kind of lean me towards saying yes, I would want to acquire this property. But all things equal, no.
All right. Okay. So to sum it up, right? It's basically you trust McDonald's and Dollar Tree way more than you trust Joe Schmo tenant, which, to be honest, I do too. Um, what about also? Okay, how about let's play through this first deal so far, right? 'Cause we talked about it a little bit. Um, where is it at right now? You acquired it. What was that? 2021. So it's 2 years ish into the deal, depending on when you close on it. How's that going? And I guess what is the eventual exit plan?
New Year's Eve of 2021 was when we closed. And to answer your question, only I think half of them were triple net tenants.
Okay.
Not all of them were triple net. Some of them were modified gross or single net. Um, where is it at now? What are our plans with it? So right now it's close to being 100% occupied. It's
Okay.
probably worth about 8.5 million. If you look at it from, I think it was a 7.5, 8 cap, somewhere around there. We also created an outlot in the property that sold for 500,000.
Hmm.
Um, so day one, this property was giving out 19% cash on cash returns. Today, we're looking at about 39%. And I think
Holy
that's
crap.
and I think that includes a 10% vacancy factor, if I remember correctly. So the margins are
Dude.
there. So yeah. Margins are there. We actually had investors on this one. We gave them a pretty high return. We gave them an 18% preferred return, and we actually paid out 22 because of the outlot. So the plan is at stabilization. I think there's two ways to actually hit it, and I don't know what the right play. I don't think there's a right play. So essentially, I have two options, and it just kind of depends on what the market is doing. I think
Okay.
the first option is you can dispose of it, cash out, roll it into something else, right? Or number two, cash out, refinance, get a second, either get a cash out, refinance, or get a second position on it where you can essentially do the same thing, cash out, refinance, do the same thing all over again, and you're probably still sitting at 20 plus percentage returns on your money. So different ways to do it, and I think even if you did the cash out refi, you should be able to recoup a lot of the dollars in equity in the deal, to pay off investors and to just find a greater deal.
Dude, congratulations. That, God, like obviously an 18% pref and then over delivering on that, plus then still having some more upside. That's
Thank
freaking
you,
awesome,
thank you,
man.
thank you.
Okay, so if you're watching this live and you have any questions for Tom, put them in the comments. I do want to jump into kind of the interesting topic because everyone invests in real estate for financial freedom, which then allows most people to quit their jobs if they choose to do so. And you did that pretty aggressively. So for those who are just jumping in, finished pharmacy school 2017, bought some rentals, sold the rentals 2021, jumped into commercial real estate. When did you quit your job?
I left my W-2 New Year's Eve of 2020. That was my last day of practicing.
Wow. Okay. And what gave you the I mean, I guess how much did you have in savings to be like, well, I can always go back and get a job, which you can. Like, what was that catalyst to say, yeah, I'm good?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple catalysts there. One, with the COVID era kind of hitting off, the quality of life was kind of going down the shitter. It wasn't great for healthcare practitioners, and if you're a
Mhm.
healthcare practitioner, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Short man hours, higher demands for just everything. You know, it's like your brain's constantly firing on 12 cylinders, doing two or three people's work while you only have six, right? So that was a piece of it. The another piece I would say is from, yes, I did have a little bit of savings, but I also knew that my living expenses were very low. I have a family of four. To provide for them, it cost me roughly 1,500 bucks in bills, right? Add a little bit more on for food, call it 2 grand, 2,500, right? So from selling all those rentals, I did have a little bit of change just sitting there for a rainy day. That helped. And yes, I if everything kind of blew up, I could go back and still be in that same job. I think those were the main pieces. But then I think the largest factor was realizing that life is short. You either jump and do it now, or you're not going to have an opportunity to do it. The longer you wait, the more reasons it's going to give you to not do it, right? Or you
Mhm.
get struck with the golden handcuffs and you're going to be there for a while, right? So I wanted to put myself against the wall so that I force myself to succeed, to have to make it. Because if I don't, right now I don't have a steady income. This 2020, I don't have a steady income. My parents, my brother, my family, they're all dependent on me, right? So if I fail, everybody's screwed. So
Yeah.
that Pygmalion effect, or Pygmalion effect is what has helped me get me to today. But once again, a lot of factors kind of helped at that moment in time for me to actually leave that W-2.
And then we are 3 years removed. You are still not back to being a pharmacist. So are things going as expected or what?
Things are going expected. I was I would say, pretty blessed last year. And once again, back in 2020, I still had some rentals. So after selling those, it was more dry powder on the side. So last year I was blessed of finding a lot of commercial deals and actually getting to the point of acquiring those deals and adding all the value that I could to those deals. Um, so basically, it's trending in the right direction. But once again, it could be, this year could be a total crapshoot. Next year could be a total crapshoot. So it all depends on. I'm a firm believer that your your outcome is proportionate to it's positively correlated to the amount of effort you put in. So the harder you work, the luckier you're going to get.
That's fair enough. I mean, you definitely have to put in the reps, otherwise you get no results, right? So, okay, some last couple questions for you. Is when you talk about scaling triple net, like in your mind, what do you think is your plan to scale the triple net side?
Scaling the triple net side. So in a sense, you're asking growing the commercial portfolio. Yes,
Yeah.
it's it's multifaceted for sure. I'm still trying to figure that one out, but a lot of it is coming from broker relations. So it's all relationship building, as people know in real estate. This is just a little bit more on steroids. You kind of have to build those relationships, keep on building them, and make sure that you're top of mind for a lot of these brokers, right?
Hmm.
And on top of that, you could also find ways to look for off-market deals. Very similar to residential real estate, however, it's a little bit more challenging because you don't have all the resources that residential data gives you or
Yeah.
residential platforms give you, if you will. So it doesn't it's harder to find motivated sellers when it comes to commercial real estate because a lot of these people that own them, anywhere from a million to probably 10, 15, 20 million dollars worth of real estate, they're savvy. They're business owners. They're not
Hmm.
someone who is readily going to give something up for a discount, right? Unless you have some type of data that, shows that they are. I haven't found that yet. Unless they're in some financial bind and you hit them at the right moment in time, then, you get lucky once in a while. But in order to scale it, it all comes from deal flow.
Yeah.
So deal flow comes from relationship building and finding
Mhm.
and filling your pipeline up from either on market, off market, etc. And then aside from that, you have to have the capital to fund the deals. So that comes from raising capital. So you have to continuously network and market yourself to other investors in order to, you're working pretty much two sides of the pipeline here in order to scale up. And I would say in addition to that, what a lot of people don't see is getting the operations of vertically integrated. So,
Mhm.
you need an asset manager, you need a property manager, you need,
Mhm.
well, lenders are a different story, but the day-to-day operations is actually pretty, I wouldn't say it's as rigorous as multifamily, but there's a component to it that actually needs standards of operations, and there's always fine tuning that you can do. So that piece I think is the most challenging part, hiring the right people in the right
Mhm.
seats to get yourself vertically integrated, right? Um,
So what
I
I'm
think,
hearing is that it's less work and maybe better turns and better tenants than multifamily. That's what I'm hearing from you right now.
that is very very correct. Definitely less management, less headaches. Um, and once again, it's one of the when a tenant calls you on the commercial side, yeah, they have an issue, but it's something that you guys kind of both work out together. It's not like, oh man, my toilet's clogged, or man,
Mhm.
this paint's chipping off. Like you need to do something about it. No, the tenants take care of those things. They
Yeah.
call when there's actually an issue, or they call because they just want to talk to you, right? So a lot of time, like for the properties that I own, the management piece has not been too crazy. I'll get a call here and there, but problems that you can all fix together.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I got a few last questions for you.
Sure, brother.
Are there creative ways to finance this? Obviously, creative financing is the hot topic on the residential side, or on the industrial side, like you said, they're more savvy, so it's basically impossible. What do you think on that?
Yeah, but they're actually open to creative financing. They're
Hmm.
because think about it. A When you're looking at a residential property owner and they're looking to sell a property, you're trying to get seller financing. The
Mhm.
main reason they don't do seller financing is because they don't understand it. You have to spend hours and hours and a lot of encounters with them in order to
Mhm.
explain to them why seller financing is more beneficial, right? With commercial owners, they actually know the time value of money. They know that if you do a seller financing deal, they actually get paid more over the length of the term based on the interest rate, right? So, more surprisingly, you actually see a lot more owners looking to do seller financing. In addition, a lot of banks I've seen are have done and are doing assumable loans. So sub two, right?
Mhm.
A lot of paperwork, but then again, they're open to that to keep those loans on their books, and maybe it's a favor for the owner. I don't know, but I've seen that they are very, very open to doing those. And you can structure a lot of deals differently. So
Yeah.
from a structuring standpoint with your investors, you can do JVs, you can do funds, you can do syndications in order to take the deal down. From a purchasing standpoint, yes, seller financing can happen. You can always negotiate for interest only. You can do, once again, assumable loans. You could do master lease options. So any of those will help you acquire a property depending upon your business plan with the property, right?
So is that
I've
a strategy that you're looking to do, or have you done those yet?
I have not personally done an assumable loan, but from what it looks like on the commercial side, it's a lot easier than the residential side because a lot of these deals that are already advertised are they've already gotten the approval from the bank for the assumable loans, right?
Gotcha.
Master lease options I haven't done in the commercial realm yet, but I've tossed the idea around to sellers.
Mhm.
I have a deal in the pipeline for a seller financing deal. It's in Illinois, about 30 minutes, 40 minutes south of Chicago. For It's a 30,000 square foot strip mall that I am looking at finagling 100% seller financing.
Wow.
So for a term of 10 years, for interest only over 2 to 4 years. So it's very possible. It just depends on the seller and how
Mhm.
well you communicate that to the sellers. In this scenario, this
Yeah.
seller is actually not so savvy, so I had to spend a little bit of time communicating that with them through a broker. So the broker actually brought me the deal. So that's another challenging piece. It's a lot of communication through a whole chain in order to get your point across instead of
Yeah.
talking directly to a seller.
Oh man, that's all good. All right, two last questions for you. If someone wants to jump into commercial real estate, specifically on the industrial side, what's the one piece of advice you'd give them?
One piece of advice, I think I would say location. Know the heights of those properties as well as the electrical capacity because you don't want to buy in a property that is very limited on those aspects that limits all your tenants. And location is a huge factor when it comes to um, industrial real estate. Now, flex space
Mhm.
as well. So, obviously everybody in real estate knows that location is something you can't change, and it's very important when it comes to a real estate investment.
Mhm.
So, you know, based on where it's at, how close it is in proximity to highways is very important. Now, if you are looking to invest in it, I for practice, what I would do is go to Crexy, go to LoopNet, just look up industrial properties a lot,
Yep.
or even 10x, right? And the reason why I say that is because they have a good vault of due diligence materials. So offering memorandums. download all the offering memorandums, take a look at those properties, take a look at those financial information, demographics, etc. Right, and get familiar with those OMs. Get familiar with how people talk about industrial real estate, and then from there, you would have to, I would say, just learn everything about the job growth and demographics of that area to see if it will be viable as an investment, because you kind of have to put yourself in the shoes of a business owner. Like, let's
Mm-hmm.
say you ran a trucking company, or let's say you ran a manufacturing company. Could your company bode well in this location? Why or why not?
Yeah,
Right.
100%.
That's the best tip I got for you.
I like it. I like it, man. All right. So how can someone add value to you?
Right now, the only things I'm looking for, actually, I'm looking for a couple things. I'm always, well, I would say I'm always looking for deals, and I'm always looking for partners. If there's some deals that you're looking at that you can't take down, or if you just need extra eyes on it, please reach out. Partners, I'm always looking for additional partners on the LP side to take care of these deals. And additionally, and I just kind of ran into this problem last week, but I'm always looking for ways to automate things. I'm always looking for ways to lessen your time in some way, shape, or form. And once again, figuring out how to vertically integrate a business like this. So,
Mm-hmm.
any tips that you have, any resources, I'm all ears.
I like it. I like it. Last question is, how can people find you?
Find me. Oh, wow. I'm pretty active on Instagram as well as LinkedIn. LinkedIn, just search my name. Instagram, I'm at pro_ton, TANH. I also have a website at protonprofits.com. A couple resources on there you can check out, a couple blogs. I think it gives out a commercial due diligence checklist. So check it out if you want to talk about commercial real estate. Happy to, and we'll get the convo started.
Love it, Ton. So I will leave, if you're watching this in the future, I will link those all down below. If you're watching it live, I got to add it live after this. But Ton, man, I appreciate it. For my viewers, if you want to get in touch with Ton, again, that's all linked down below. And then if you can do me a favor while you're down there to hit the like button and also subscribe, because that's all good fun. And Ton, man, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, brother. Glad to be on. Happy, and hope I could add some value to the viewers.
Sweet. And for the viewers out here, if you have any extra questions, don't forget, you can also leave them in the comments down below. Ton, you can stay on for a second, but for the rest of you all, I will see you all on the next one. See you all.